Admiral Tanrock Jorak stared through the reinforced observation window at the human female. Disgusting creature. How could something so soft-looking survive on a death planet like Earth? No exoskeleton. No natural armaments. Just that strange, constantly shedding skin and those flat teeth. Yet somehow these bipedal anomalies had fought the Concordat to a standstill. "Sir, the prisoner is secure. Shall we proceed with interrogation?" Lieutenant Plex's mandibles clicked nervously. Not yet. Jorax's 8 eyes narrowed, focusing on the human's unusual behavior. Despite 3 broken limbs and significant blood loss, their red fluid so bizarre the creature was humming? What is that noise it's making? Unknown, sir. Their communication methods remain partially decoded. Our xenobiologists suggest it might be a stress response or possibly a death ritual. Jorax snorted through his breathing spiracles. Fascinating and repulsive simultaneously. Tell me again how this one was captured. Plex's datapad illuminated his face in the dim observation room. Female designated Rivera, M, was recovered during the failed assault on Outpost Krell 9. Her squad was eliminated, but she survived despite sustaining injuries that would kill most sentient species. Medical scans revealed multiple redundant organs, a skeleton reinforced with unusual minerals, and blood that, sir, their blood actually transports metals throughout their body. It's barbaric. The Galactic Concordat had ruled the spiral arm for 12 millennia. 12 perfect millennia of order, hierarchy, and proper biological categorization. Then humans appeared, breaking every rule of evolutionary advancement. And they came from a planet with crushing gravity, lethal radiation levels, atmospheric poison, and apex predators that would make a Vrexian war beast look like a domestic pet. The High Council is concerned, Jorax said, pacing with 4 of his limbs while the other 2 remained formally clasped behind his thorax. 3 colony worlds have already shown signs of rebellion since first contact with humans. Their ideas spread like a pathogen. What shall we do with this one, sir? The traditional execution methods might not work effectively on human physiology. Jorax paused, a cruel smile forming across his mandibles. No, Lieutenant. We need something more instructive. Something that demonstrates the natural order. Prepare the Nexari arena. Plex's exoskeleton paled. The apex predator pits? But, sir. The Council wants a spectacle. Something to remind the colonies of their place in the hierarchy. Jorax turned back to study the human female once more. Broadcast it across all channels. Let every species in the Concordat watch this Deathworlder learn her place in the natural order. The human looked up suddenly, as if sensing his gaze, and smiled directly at the observation window. A primitive display of teeth that sent an involuntary shiver down Jorax's spine plates. How odd. Almost as if she knew what was coming. Prisoner transfer complete. Decontamination protocols engaged. The automated voice echoed through the holding bay as Mackenzie Rivera was dragged into the detention block by 4 armed guards. Keep those restraints at maximum, barked Sub-Commander Vexel. These humans can snap standard-issue cuffs. Remember what happened on the Dreadnought Eternal? The guards' antennae twitched in unified acknowledgement. Everyone had heard the stories. 1 human male had broken free and disabled 16 elite warriors before being subdued. The Concordat had classified it as mass hysteria when footage leaked to colony worlds. Mack's head lolled forward, blood trickling from a gash above her eye. 3 of her limbs hung at unnatural angles. The medical scanner hovering nearby beeped constantly. Unusual readings, Commander, chirped the medical drone. Subject maintains consciousness despite severe trauma. Internal bleeding in 2 redundant organs. Bone fractures in 17 locations. Vexel leaned closer, fascinated despite his disgust. Why isn't it making distress sounds? Their species typically vocalizes when damaged. Perhaps its neural systems have failed? Suggested the nearest guard. That theory evaporated when Mack suddenly lifted her head and grinned, teeth stained red. "Hey there, bug boy, got anything to drink around here? I'm parched." The guards recoiled. Vexel's wings fluttered in agitation. "It speaks, and understands our language?" Mack rolled her eyes. "Universal translator genius. Standard issue. You guys confiscated it with my gear, remember? I just picked up enough of your clicks and whistles during interrogation to get by." Impossible. No species could acquire linguistic patterns that quickly. "Yeah, well, we humans are full of surprises." She shifted slightly, wincing as broken bones grated. "So what's the plan? More questions?" "Because I gotta tell you, I'm getting bored repeating name, rank, serial number over and over." Vexel composed himself, mandibles clicking in the pattern that signified formal address. Mackenzie Rivera of Earth Forces. "The Concordat High Council has reviewed your case. The raid on Outpost Krell 9 was an act of terrorism against peaceful Concordat citizens." Mack snorted. "Peaceful? You were building planet-killer weapons." "The defensive measures only." Vexel waved dismissively. "Regardless, the Council has determined that your crimes warrant maximum penalty. But simple execution would be insufficient. Let me guess. Public spectacle? Making an example? You guys really need some new material." Despite her bravado, Mack's eyes darted around, cataloging exits, guard positions, weapon placements. Admiral Jorax entered, his imposing form causing the guards to straighten to attention. "The human seems remarkably calm for a creature facing extinction," he observed. "That's because we're really hard to kill, Admiral," Mack replied with a wink. "Something your troops learned the hard way." Jorax's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Indeed. Which is why we've arranged something special. The Nexari have not been fed in 3 cycles. They will provide excellent entertainment for tomorrow's Victory Day celebrations." For the first time, genuine emotion flickered across Mack's face, not fear, but something that made Jorax's exoskeleton tighten instinctively. It looked remarkably like interest. "Citizens of the glorious Concordat, witness justice served to enemies of our prosperity." The announcer's voice boomed across the massive arena, amplified by quantum resonators that carried the message to every corner of the capital city. Above, thousands of broadcast drones hovered, their lenses focused on the central platform where Admiral Jorax stood in ceremonial battle armor. "Today marks 3,000 cycles since our ancestors unified the stars under one banner." Jorax raised all 6 arms, basking in the thunderous response from the audience. "Today we remind all species of their proper place in the cosmic hierarchy." The stadium was packed with representatives from over 40 planetary systems. The wealthy Tralaxians occupied the luxury boxes, their crystalline bodies refracting light in dazzling patterns. The worker caste Meridians filled the general seating areas. Even the rarely seen Kulari ambassadors had emerged from their methane habitats to witness the event from specialized viewing chambers. Magnificent turnout, heard Grand Minister Klaxer from her elevated position beside Jorax. The Victory Day celebrations grow more impressive each cycle. Indeed, and this year's main attraction should prove particularly educational. Below them in the holding area, Mack sat on a bench in the preparation chamber. They'd removed her restraints, what was the point when she was about to die, but kept her under heavy guard. A medical drone had administered minimal treatment, just enough to ensure she'd be conscious for the spectacle. "Betting pools have reached record levels," Lieutenant Plex reported, mandibles twitching with excitement. The Vrexian ambassador wagered 50,000 credits that the human survives 2 minutes. Most bets are under 30 seconds. "And the longest prediction?" asked Jorax. 4 minutes, 17 seconds from some eccentric Tralaxian philosopher. Claims to have studied human physiology. Jorax chittered in amusement. "Delusions. Prepare the arena." The floor beneath Mack's feet began to rise. a circular platform elevating her toward the arena floor. Blinding lights assaulted her eyes as the crowd's roar washed over her. The vast dome of the arena stretched almost a kilometer across, with force field barriers separating the spectators from whatever horror awaited below. Behold! Jorax's voice thundered, a captured terrorist from the Deathworld Earth. Their species dares to challenge Concordat authority, spreading dangerous ideas of equality and independence. Boos and hisses cascaded from the audience. On massive display screens, Mack's face was projected alongside footage of human military actions against Concordat forces. For crimes against galactic peace, this human will face nature's judgment in the form of our most perfect predators, the Nexari. A deafening cheer erupted. In luxury boxes, wealthy aliens adjusted their viewing apparatus and finalized bets through neural interfaces. 50,000 on first blood within 20 seconds. Double that for death within the minute. Watch the limbs go first. Nexari always start with extremities. 6 massive doors around the arena's perimeter began to grind open. From the darkness beyond, rumbling growls echoed. The ground literally trembled. The human female will now face 6 adult Nexari specimens, announced Jorax, clear satisfaction in his voice. These apex predators from the high-gravity world Nexus Prime have evolved over millions of years to become the perfect killing machines. Even our most advanced warriors approach them with caution. Mack stood in the center of the arena, barefoot on the blood-soaked sand. The guards had provided no weapons, not even the dignity of armor. Just loose-fitting prison garb that would offer no protection. Does the condemned wish to beg for mercy? Jorax asked, mandibles spread in what passed for a smile among his kind. Mack squinted up at the Admiral's private box, the corner of her mouth quirking upward. Actually, she called out, voice surprisingly strong, I was wondering if you guys have any popcorn? This might take a while and I get snacky during long performances. Jorax's expression hardened. Release the Nexari. Let justice be served. As the first massive shadow emerged from a doorway, Mack didn't run. She stretched, working out the stiffness in her recently healed limbs, and cracked her neck. Showtime, she murmured to herself. The first Nexari that stepped into the light made Mack involuntarily whistle under her breath. Well, aren't you just gorgeous in a terrifying kind of way? The creature stood nearly 4 meters tall at the shoulder, supported by 6 muscular limbs ending in claws that could easily disembowel a tank. Its elongated head housed 3 sets of eyes, forward-facing predator eyes that glowed amber in the arena lights. Multiple rows of serrated teeth gleamed with bioluminescent saliva that Mack knew from briefings was both venomous and acidic. Armored plates covered its torso, evolved to withstand the attacks of other apex predators on its home world. And it wasn't alone. 5 more Nexari emerged from the other doors, each slightly different in coloration and size, but equally lethal. Their movements were surprisingly graceful for creatures so massive, padding silently across the sand, despite weighing several tons each. Well, this is just excessive, Mack muttered, slowly turning to keep all 6 beasts in her field of vision. Overkill much? The arena itself offered no refuge. The circular field stretched 200 meters across, its surface covered with red-tinted sand that would show blood dramatically for the spectators. Ancient stains told stories of countless deaths. Along the perimeter, smooth walls rose 30 meters high, topped with rippling force fields to prevent anything from escaping. Several gnarled, dead trees had been placed around the arena, not large enough to climb to safety, but sufficient to create obstacles and hiding spots to prolong the entertainment. The crowd had gone eerily silent, collectively holding their breath as the Nexari began to circle. In the luxury boxes, viewers adjusted their optics to maximum resolution, not wanting to miss a moment of the impending carnage. Tactical assessment, Rivera, Mack whispered to herself, falling back on military training to focus her mind. 6 hostiles. No weapons, no extraction, no backup. She scanned the arena again, this time looking beyond the obvious. The sand beneath her feet different densities in different areas, suggesting underground features. The lighting fixtures potentially climbable, but too high to reach without a boost. The dead trees useless for climbing, but the wood might be weaponized if she could break off a branch. Most importantly, she watched the Nexari themselves. They weren't attacking immediately, instead establishing a perimeter and studying her. Intelligent hunters, then, not mindless killing machines. One Nexari, larger than the others with distinctive scarring across its faceplates, snapped at a smaller one that ventured too close to it. Hierarchy. Pack dynamics. That was useful information. Reminds me of the Timberwolves back in Montana, Mack said. Just loud enough for the nearest broadcast drone to pick up. Same social structure, different planet. In the command box, Admiral Jorax leaned forward, irritated. Why isn't the human running? The prey is supposed to run. Lieutenant Plex consulted his datapad. Perhaps it's frozen in fear, sir. Though the biometric readings suggest elevated heart rate, but not panic levels. Scan deeper. What is it doing? Sir, the human appears to be analyzing the Nexari behavior patterns, in possibly the arena structure. Jorax's eyes narrowed. Impossible. No sentient being analyzes when facing apex predators. Instinct overrides intellect. Below, the largest Nexari had completed its circle and now faced Mack directly, lowering its massive head and emitting a bone-rattling growl that reverberated through the arena. The sound was designed by evolution to paralyze prey with terror before the killing strike. Mack smiled back at it. "All right, big guy," she said, planting her feet in the sand and squaring her shoulders. "Let's get acquainted." The largest Nexari, the scarred Alpha, charged. 2 tons of apex predator accelerated with startling speed, kicking up clouds of arena sand. The crowd surged to their feet with a collective gasp. Betting interfaces pinged frantically as wagers on death within seconds spiked. But Mack didn't run. Instead, she did something that caused the entire arena to fall into stunned silence. She charged directly at the Nexari. "What in the 7 moons is it doing?" Jorax hissed, rising from his command chair. Every evolutionary instinct, every rational thought should have compelled the human to flee. Even the bravest Concordat warriors would seek defensive position against a Nexari. But this small, fragile-looking creature was running straight toward death with a fierce grin on her face. Just before impact, Mack suddenly pivoted, ducking beneath the massive swinging claws and rolling alongside the creature's flank. In the same motion, she grabbed a handful of sand and flung it directly into the beast's sensitive side eyes. The Nexari roared in surprise and pain, skidding to a halt and shaking its massive head. "That's right, you overgrown lizard cat." "Let's establish some ground rules," Mack called out, her voice carrying through the shocked arena. The Alpha Nexari turned, more cautious now, circling with a low, rumbling growl. The other 5 held their positions, watching behavior that confused the xenobiologists monitoring the event. "Fascinating," murmured Grand Minister Klaxor. "The pack is deferring to the Alpha's initial engagement rather than swarming the prey. Most unusual restraint." Mack stood tall in the center of the arena, her body language radiating not fear but authority. She maintained direct eye contact with the Alpha Nexari, a challenge posture recognized across countless predatory species throughout the galaxy. "I spent 3 years studying wolf rehabilitation in Yellowstone National Park back on Earth," Mack projected loudly, playing to the broadcast drones. "You know what I learned? Apex predators respect confidence. They expect prey to run." She took a deliberate step toward the Alpha. "I'm not prey." The Alpha Nexari lowered its massive head, multiple rows of teeth bared in warning. Its claws dug into the sand, muscles tensing for another charge. Mack suddenly emitted a piercing whistle followed by a deep guttural sound that approximated the Nexari's own dominance call, a vocalization she'd memorized from intelligence briefings on the species. The effect was electric. The Alpha froze, head tilted in evident confusion. The other Nexari shifted uneasily, their pack dynamics temporarily disrupted by this bizarre prey that behaved like a rival predator. In the luxury boxes, aliens were frantically adjusting their translators, trying to understand what they'd just witnessed. Did the human just speak Nexari? A Trilaxian ambassador asked incredulously. Impossible, his companion replied. Their vocal apparatus couldn't possibly produce those frequency ranges. Yet the evidence was before them. The Alpha Nexari was now circling more warily, its behavior shifting from pure aggression to something more calculating. In the command box, Admiral Jorax's exoskeleton had paled several shades. What is happening? This isn't how the execution is supposed to proceed. Lieutenant Plex's mandibles clicked nervously. Sir, it appears the human is attempting to establish dominance within the pack hierarchy, but that's insanity, Jorax finished. No species can insert itself into Nexari's social structures. They're genetically engineered to be the perfect executioners precisely because of their exclusive pack loyalty. Below in the arena, Mack and the Alpha were engaged in a tense standoff, circling each other like prize-fighters. When the Nexari fainted forward, Mack didn't flinch. When it roared, she roared back a human battle cry that, while softer, carried no less intensity. The crowd watched in disbelieving silence as prey refused to act like prey. And then Mack did something truly shocking. She turned her back on the Alpha and walked away. Turning your back on an apex predator was either the height of stupidity or a power move of unimaginable confidence. The arena held its collective breath as the Alpha Nexari tensed, its powerful haunches coiling for what would surely be a decisive pounce. Then it happened. The beast lunged forward, covering the distance in a heartbeat. Its massive claws slashed across Mack's back, shredding her prison garment and opening 3 deep gashes from shoulder to hip. First blood, announced the arena's automated system as the crowd roared in excitement. But instead of collapsing or screaming, Mack spun around and delivered a sharp jab directly to the Nexari's sensitive snout. The blow wasn't powerful enough to hurt the massive creature, but the sheer audacity of a counterattack shocked both the beast and the audience. Did you see that? Lieutenant Plex's voice rose several octaves. It's still fighting, with significant dorsal lacerations. Admiral Jorax leaned forward, mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. Enhanced biometric scans. What's happening with its physiology? The medical drone's readout appeared on his private display. What he saw made his exoskeleton tighten. Sir, Plex whispered, these readings can't be correct. The human's endocrine system is flooding its bloodstream with compounds our database identifies as adrenaline and endorphins. It's using the pain as a stimulant. Blood streamed down Mack's back, staining the sand beneath her feet. Yet she remained standing in a loose fighting stance, blood-smeared face locked in an expression the translator uncertainly labeled as determined grin. That all you got, big cat? She taunted the Alpha. I've gotten worse scratches from my nephew's hamster. The Nexari circled more cautiously now, puzzled by prey that neither died nor fled. As the standoff continued, Mack's body began to glisten with moisture. What is that secretion? Demanded Grand Minister Klaxor, adjusting her viewing apparatus. Some kind of defensive toxin? The xenobiologist on duty answered reluctantly, No, Minister. According to our limited information on human physiology, they leak water through their skin to regulate temperature. They call it sweating. How primitive, Klaxor scoffed, but her tone lacked conviction. In the sweltering heat of the arena, under the merciless lights, Mack's unique biology was proving advantageous. While the Nexari, like most evolved predators, could sprint with devastating speed, they weren't built for extended exertion. Their massive bodies overheated quickly, requiring rest between bursts of activity. Humans, by contrast, had evolved as persistence hunters on the savannas of Earth. They couldn't outrun prey, they simply outlasted it. The human isn't even attempting to hide or seek shelter, Plex observed with growing unease. It's forcing the Nexari to keep moving, to stay engaged. Jorax's eyes narrowed as understanding dawned. It's trying to exhaust them. Indeed, after 20 minutes, far longer than any execution had ever lasted, the effects were becoming visible. The Alpha Nexari's movements had slowed perceptibly. Its breathing came in heavier pants. Meanwhile, Mack continued to move with deliberate efficiency, conserving energy while forcing the predators to expend theirs. Most astonishing of all, the wounds on her back had already begun to clot. The Concordat's medical database indicated that for most species, injuries of that severity would result in catastrophic blood loss. Yet the human's bizarre biology was actively repairing itself even while engaged in combat. "Sir," Plex said, his voice barely audible, "betting systems are experiencing unprecedented activity. The Trilaxian who wagered on extended survival has increased his bet tenfold." Jorax didn't respond. He watched with mounting concern as the human female, this Deathworlder, demonstrated just why her species had survived a planet that should have killed them eons ago. In the arena below, Mack wiped sweat from her brow and smiled at the increasingly exhausted Alpha. "Let's try something new, shall we?" she called out, her voice betraying no hint of the pain she must be feeling. And then she began to sing a hauntingly rhythmic melody that echoed strangely across the arena. The melody Mack sang contained no words, just a modulating rhythm of hums and tones that rose and fell in patterns strangely reminiscent of the Nexari's own communication sounds. The arena's acoustic system amplified her voice, carrying it to every corner of the massive space. "What is that noise?" Jorax demanded. The xenolinguist on duty frantically analyzed the sound patterns. "It's approximating Nexari subvocalizations, sir. The frequencies and patterns share a 68% correlation with their bonding calls." "Humans don't have the vocal capacity to." Jorax stopped mid-sentence as he watched the arena below. The Alpha Nexari had ceased its aggressive posturing. Its massive head tilted to one side, 3 sets of eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of cognitive processing rather than hunting focus. Behind it, the other 5 Nexari had drawn closer, their body language shifting from predatory to curious. 2 years embedded with the xenobiology team on Europa taught me something interesting, Mack called out, her voice carrying to the broadcast drones. All predator species develop complex vocalizations, not just for hunting but for social bonding. She altered her melody, incorporating deeper tones that vibrated through the sand. The smallest Nexari, likely the youngest, took a hesitant step toward her. "Fascinating," muttered the xenobiologist, forgetting protocol in his excitement. "She's somehow mimicking their familial recognition patterns. The harmonic oscillation in her voice contains frequencies that trigger their." Silence. Jorax snapped, his exoskeleton flushing dark with anger. "This is an execution, not a research opportunity." But the execution had clearly gone off script. Mack now stood motionless, arms relaxed at her sides, a non-threatening posture. Her head was slightly bowed, eyes cast downward but still watching the Alpha. To the Concordat officials, it might have looked like submission. To the Nexari, it was the precise stance a junior pack member would take when approaching the Alpha. "Look at her body orientation," whispered Grand Minister Klaxer. "The angle of her shoulders, the positioning of her limbs. It's as if she studied their social dynamics." In fact, Mack had. During the 3 days of her captivity, she'd requested and surprisingly been granted access to Concordat archives, but ostensibly to better understand the justice system that would execute her. Instead, she'd memorized everything available on Nexari behavior. Now she was putting that knowledge to use. With deliberate slowness, she knelt and placed her palm flat against the sand. Then she leaned forward until her forehead nearly touched the ground, a gesture that, among Nexari, signified acceptance of another's dominance while requesting pack inclusion. The arena had fallen completely silent. Even the betting systems had frozen as spectators watched in disbelief. The Alpha approached Mack's kneeling form, its massive head lowering to her level. Saliva dripped from its jaws, sizzling slightly where it hit the sand. One wrong move, one misinterpreted signal, and those jaws would close around Mack's skull. Instead, the creature did something unprecedented. It extended one massive forelimb and placed it gently for a Nexari on Mack's shoulder, pushing her deeper into the submissive posture. Then it lifted its head and emitted a complex series of sounds directed at the other pack members. In the command box, the xenolinguist's eyes widened in shock. Sir, according to our translation matrix, that vocalization pattern indicates acceptance. Jorax's mandibles clicked furiously. Acceptance of what? The scientist's voice was barely audible. Flourish of the human into the pack hierarchy. For the first time in the history of the Concordat, an execution had been rejected by the executioners themselves. Admiral Jorax slammed his fist on the command console. This is unacceptable. Override the arena protocols. Release the stimulant gas to reactivate their aggression. Lieutenant Plex hesitated. Sir, we've never needed to use that measure before. The dosage calculations for multiple Nexari in an open arena would be. Do it now, Jorax hissed. The entire Concordat is watching. We cannot allow a human to make mockery of our justice system. Down in the arena, Mack had risen to her feet, maintaining the careful body language of respected but subordinate pack member. The Nexari Alpha had moved away, engaging with the others through a series of grunts and rumbles. The tension had visibly decreased until hidden vents around the arena's perimeter began hissing, releasing a faintly visible yellow gas. The effect on the Nexari was immediate. The largest of the non-alpha predators, a scarred, aggressive male with notched faceplates, suddenly roared, its pupils dilating to pinpoints. It spun toward the smallest pack member, jaws gaping wide. Mack recognized the shift instantly. They're drugging them, she muttered, watching the aggressive male stalk toward the youngest Nexari with unmistakable killing intent. The Alpha was distracted, investigating the strange smell coming from the vents. The other adults backed away, instinctively avoiding the clearly unstable pack member. The young one, however, had backed itself against the arena wall with nowhere to escape. In the executive box, Grand Minister Klaxor leaned forward. Ah, now we'll see real carnage. Drugged Nexari have been known to slaughter their own young. But something unexpected happened. Mack sprinted across the arena, placing herself between the aggressive male and the cornered youngster. She faced the advancing predator with her arms spread wide, making herself appear larger while emitting a warning cry that mimicked the Alpha's dominance call. Is the human protecting the juvenile? The xenobiologist's voice was incredulous. The drugged Nexari hesitated, momentarily confused by this small creature's audacity. Then it lunged with savage force, claws extended to disembowel. Mack didn't dodge. Instead, she dropped flat to the ground at the last possible instant, causing the massive beast to overshoot its target and crash headfirst into the arena wall with bone-crunching force. The impact momentarily stunned the creature. Before it could recover, Mack was on her feet, grabbing a broken branch from one of the decorative dead trees. When the Nexari turned back toward her, she jammed the improvised weapon directly into its most vulnerable spot, the unarmored sensory pit beneath its jaw. The predator howled in pain, shaking its massive head as it backed away from both Mack and the juvenile. "Did you see that?" gasped the Trilaxian ambassador. The human knew exactly where to strike. That specialist knowledge of Nexari anatomy. Indeed, Mack's preparation had been thorough. Her apparent request for legal documents during captivity had included detailed Nexari biological data, ostensibly to understand her executioners better. In the stands, the audience reaction had transformed from bloodthirsty excitement to murmurs of astonishment. Some were standing, mandibles or tentacles agape. Others frantically recorded the unprecedented event on personal devices, bypassing the official broadcast channels. The human female saved a Nexari young spread the whispers. She knew their biology. She speaks their language. The alpha, noticing the commotion, bounded over to investigate. It sniffed at the injured aggressive male, then at the juvenile, and finally at Mack herself. The human stood tall, blood-streaked and filthy, but radiating confidence. Then, in a gesture that sent shockwaves through the stadium, the alpha lowered itself to the ground before Mack in the Nexari submission posture. One by one, the other Nexari, except the still dazed aggressive male, followed suit, creating a circle of massive predators all deferring to the small human in their midst. Containment breach protocol. Jorax shrieked, panic evident in his voice. Activate the emergency termination systems. But Grand Minister Klaxor's hand shot out, grasping his control arm. Wait, she commanded, her crystalline eyes fixed on the scene below. This has diplomatic implications. In the arena, Mack placed her hand gently on the alpha's head in the traditional Nexari acceptance gesture, completing the transfer of leadership. Then she looked directly up at the command box, a dangerous smile spreading across her face. I believe, she called out, her voice amplified by the arena's acoustic system, that we need to renegotiate the terms of my surrender. Terminate broadcast immediately. Admiral Jorax ordered, his exoskeleton now pale with stress. Security forces to the arena floor. Lock down all exits. But it was too late. The unprecedented spectacle had already been transmitted across 47 star systems. Billions of beings had witnessed a human not only survive the unsurvivable but form a connection with creatures engineered to be uncontrollable. The human has compromised the Nexari somehow, Jorax insisted to his increasingly skeptical officers. Some sort of chemical manipulation or technological interference. Lieutenant Plex nervously checked his scanner. Sir, we've run full spectrum analysis. There's no evidence of chemical agents or tech. The human is just communicating with them. In the arena, Mack had mounted the Alpha Nexari, perched proudly on its massive shoulders. The creature seemed not just tolerant but willing, even pleased to carry her. The other predators formed a protective circle around them, facing outward against the security forces now cautiously entering through the access tunnels. Concordat citizens, Mack's voice boomed through the arena as she'd commandeered the broadcast system. You've been told humans are violent, irrational Deathworlders, that we're a threat to galactic stability. Today was meant to prove that. She gestured to the Nexari now responding to her subtle commands. Instead, you've seen that understanding trumps fear, in connection beats control. The Concordat rules through division and hierarchies, teaching you that some species are inherently superior to others. The security forces froze, uncertain how to proceed against 6 Nexari in formation. Their standard weapons wouldn't penetrate the Predator's natural armor quickly enough to prevent a deadly counterattack. In the viewing stands, murmurs had become open conversations. Species that rarely interacted were turning to each other, discussing what they'd witnessed. The human used no weapons, a Meridian worker observed to a neighboring Kulari. Just knowledge and adaptation. The Concordat said humans cannot be reasoned with, the Kulari replied, methane bubbling thoughtfully in its speech apparatus. Yet she reasoned with apex predators. Similar exchanges were happening throughout the arena and across broadcast channels. 3 colony worlds immediately reported public gatherings in their main plazas, with crowds demanding explanations from local governors. This is insurrection. Jorax raged, watching his command screens fill with reports of civil unrest. The human has triggered some sort of mass delusion. Grand Minister Klaxor's crystalline form shimmered with calculated thought. No, Admiral. The human has simply demonstrated an adaptability our propaganda claimed was impossible. The consequences are political. At her subtle gesture, her personal guards moved between Jorax and the control panel, preventing further intervention. Below, Mack and her Nexari companions had reached the main service exit. Security forces retreated before the advancing predators, unwilling to sacrifice themselves against such overwhelming force. Maintenance workers and arena staff, members of species long considered inferior by the Concordat hierarchy, stepped aside, some even deliberately opening paths for the escaping group. All vessels, this is Admiral Jorax. He broadcast desperately to the orbital fleet. Implement planetary containment protocol. No ships leave orbit. The human prisoner must not escape. But across the command frequencies came an unprecedented response: silence. Then, one by one, ship captains began reporting technical difficulties or navigation system recalibrations that would prevent immediate compliance. The unthinkable was happening. The perfect order of the Concordat, maintained for 12 millennia, was unraveling all because one human female had survived what no being should survive and connected where no connection should be possible. As Mack rode triumphantly from the arena atop her Alpha Nexari, broadcast drones following her progress, she smiled directly into the cameras. Change is coming to the galaxy, folks, and it's about time. 3 weeks after the arena incident, the Galactic Concordat held its emergency summit in the Grand Convocation Chamber. Representatives from all member species attended, not just the ruling castes as tradition dictated, but delegates from every level of their societies. And at the center of it all stood Mackenzie Rivera, flanked by 2 adult Nexari who remained perpetually at her side. Her wounds had healed, leaving dramatic scars that she displayed proudly, rejecting offers of regenerative treatment. She wore a custom-designed outfit that combined practical human military styling with symbolic elements from various Concordat cultures. "The human diplomatic approach is unconventional," muttered a Trilaxian representative, watching as Mack moved freely between different species delegations, adapting her communication style for each encounter. With the hierarchical Meridians, she maintained formal posture and precise language. With the emotional Culari, she used expansive gestures and metaphor-rich speech. With the analytical Trilaxians, she presented detailed data projections supporting her proposals. "She's like a linguistic chameleon," observed the xenolinguist who had once analyzed her Nexari vocalizations. "Notice how even her pheromone output modulates to create comfortable chemical signatures for each species she engages with." "Is that a Deathworlder trait?" asked a junior aide. "No," the linguist replied thoughtfully. "That's uniquely human. They evolved as social predators who hunt through cooperation. Their greatest adaptation isn't their endurance or temperature regulation, it's their ability to form connections across boundaries." At the far side of the chamber, Admiral Jorax entered under guard. His once gleaming ceremonial armor had been stripped of rank insignia. The guards, notably, included members of species previously restricted from security roles. The chamber quieted as Mack approached him. For a moment, they simply regarded each other, the admiral who had ordered her execution and the human who had turned it into liberation. "Prisoner Rivera," Jorax said stiffly, using her old designation. "You've caused the collapse of a 12 millennia order. Countless worlds now face instability and chaos. Was your revenge worth such a price?" Mack smiled, but there was no malice in it. "This isn't revenge, Admiral. It's evolution. The Concordat stagnated because it feared change. It classified and limited species instead of learning from their differences." She gestured around the chamber, where representatives of formerly segregated species now consulted together. "Humans don't want to destroy your civilization. We want to join it, but as equals, not subjects." Jorax's mandibles clicked in what the translator identified as bitter amusement. "And I suppose you'll lead this new coalition? The apex Deathworlder commanding us all?" "Leadership isn't about commanding, Admiral. It's about connecting." Mack extended her hand, a human gesture of reconciliation. Even former enemies can find common ground. The Nexari taught me that. Yet behind her, the Alpha Nexari rumbled soft agreement. The same predator that had slashed her back now stood protective sentinel, a living symbol of unexpected alliance. The chamber watched in tense silence as Jorax stared at the offered hand. Centuries of Concordat doctrine warred with the undeniable reality before him. Finally, with visible reluctance, he extended a limb to complete the gesture. "I still don't understand how you did it," he said quietly. "How one soft-skinned primate from a backwater Deathworld managed to undo the work of generations." Mack's laugh echoed through the chamber, genuine, warm, and strangely infectious. Several delegates found themselves instinctively responding to the sound. "That's humanity's secret weapon, Admiral Jorax. Not our endurance or adaptability, or even our stubbornness, though those help. Our real strength is that we've been underestimated by predators since we first climbed down from the trees." She turned to address the full assembly, her voice carrying without technological amplification another subtle demonstration of human capability. "The galaxy is changing. The Nexari weren't meant to accept an outsider into their pack, but they did. The Concordat wasn't meant to evolve, but it will. Humanity wasn't meant to survive on our harsh world, but we thrived." Around the chamber, delegates from dozens of worlds listened with growing attention. Even those initially resistant found themselves drawn in by something indefinable in her presence, something that resonated across the boundaries of biology and culture. "That's the thing about life," Mack concluded. The scars on her back gleaming under the chamber lights as she stood tall among aliens who had once thought her kind unworthy of respect. "It adapts, it connects, it finds a way." And across the galaxy, billions watched as a new order began, led by the Deathworlder girl who was thrown to apex predators and became their queen.